Welcome back to your soon-to-be favorite podcast. I'm Angelica.
And I'm Kelsey.
And this is
Here We Grow. All right. Hi, guys. Angelica's microphone's not even in front of her face yet.
Hello. Pull it back up, bruh.
Talking to your mic, make sure I can hear you.
Hello.
Yep, okay.
Okay. Yes.
We were just having a very intriguing conversation, and we're like, we should record this. So
This is good content.
Let's sit down and talk.
Oh my god.
So kind of the basis of what we were just talking about was like if it's worth being diagnosed with some type of neurodivergence, whether that's autism, ADHD, OCD, whatever. We were talking about like symptoms of autism and whether or not it's like, whether or not it's beneficial to be diagnosed. And then I started talking a little bit about why, because you were talking about like the light bulb moment. Do you want to reiterate that?
Yeah. So going back to like specifically, is it worth being diagnosed? And I think I can only speak for myself with being diagnosed with OCD. For me, there really wasn't like a light bulb moment. Like it wasn't really beneficial to me whether or not it was confirmed. Like, yeah, it was cool that it was confirmed by a professional, but at the same time, like I knew that it didn't change the way I lived my life. It didn't change the way I explained it to people. Like not once after she confirmed it did I tell people differently, like how I would explain normally my OCD.
Wait, what about when you were younger and you started doing these things, but you didn't know it was OCD yet?
I didn't. I just thought that's who I was. And I thought everyone had like these little like ritual things. Like to me, I didn't really think much of it. For me, it did not, at least growing up, it did not hinder anything. It didn't hold me back from anything. As I got older, it started hindering me. And that's where the frustration came. Like not being able to leave the house or taking me a long time to leave the house. Or when I left, I had to come back because I couldn't go to sleep. Like then it started hindering that kind of stuff because the responsibility fell on me and me only. Whereas where I lived at home, I had other people to do that for me. So it wasn't as severe. So the light bulb moment for me, didn't happen. Like it just didn't.
When did you figure out that it was OCD? Like when did it cross from, oh, this is just the thing that I do that I think everybody does to, oh, I'm the only one who does this, or like I'm part of a few people that do this, not everyone.
So I used to have rituals that I would do in my room that I guess only I would know that I do. However, when I started checking the doors, that's when my mom noticed. And she's like, why do you do that? And I'm like, what do you mean? To make sure it's locked. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, but you've checked it. Like you checked it like 5-6 times. And I'm like, I'm just making sure it's locked. And even at that time, intrusive thoughts. Yeah. Oh. I didn't know. I just thought it was like me. I just needed to feel secure. I think it was in college. My intro to psych or sociology, one of my psych classes or whatever. One of the, we had to learn about different mental illnesses or mental health or whatever. And one of them was OCD. And I'm literally in college, like a freshman in college. I'm reading all this stuff and I'm like, what? Like that kind of sounds like what? Are you telling me no one else does this shit? Yeah. And so that's when I'm kind of like, oh my God, I think this is it. This has got to be it. And then we would have to write in a forum and you'd have to like give your answer to whatever question the professor had. And then you'd have to comment like on 2 people. And one girl wrote on there about her having OCD and her being diagnosed with it. So then I started talking to her like, hey, like what do you do? Or how were you diagnosed and how were you able to overcome it? Like what? And her thing was cleaning. Hers was so bad that her skin, the skin on her hands were constantly peeled and they would bleed. And so she would have to wear gloves. So that was her issue, which I totally understand why you would want to fix that. And I think she actually started taking medication for it when she was older, but it started for her in kindergarten that she could remember. But I kind of saw it as like, oh, I'm not as bad as you. Like, I'm fine. I can deal with it.
It's not affecting your life in the way that you would need to start medication or anything.
Yeah. And so.
But do you see how like that moment in the psych when you were like, oh, wait, this is OCD? That was your light bulb moment.
Yeah, but even then, I didn't like. I don't remember thinking like, oh, so that's why I do what I do. It was more of like, oh, this is it. Like, it was more of like, okay, and then moving on. I don't really remember it being like this.
It didn't help you like
big-
understand it better. That now you can Google things about OCD and find out and like understand it better.
I don't think I ever really looked into it. Like, I kind of just, I literally took what was said in that textbook, and I really haven't done much research after that, to be completely honest, because I know it's counting, checking, and cleaning. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And mine was like, okay, I have checking and counting, and that's it. Like, and to me, I guess the most I've connected is with you. Because you telling me like it's connected to my possessions, my higher dollar possessions, and or thinking someone's gonna break in or someone's gonna steal my things that I've worked hard for, or you know, like all these bad things that's linked to anxiety. Like, I've done the most work with you. Not, I think that was even my light bulb moment, is that it's linked to my anxiety.
Yeah.
But not necessarily knowing that I had OCD.
Do you feel like knowing how it's linked to possessions and your anxiety and stuff helps you manage it?
No.
Like if you feel like if you're checking something and then you feel the urge to go back, you may be able to talk yourself out of it? No? You still have to go back and check it?
It's weird because my OCD, like, it's constantly evolving. So once,
it's like probably based on your stress level.
Yeah, once I do quote unquote overcome one thing, another thing comes into place. So I'm constantly like on my toes about it. I don't know, like I constantly have to worry. It's a constant worry about something.
It's like your anxiety about your anxiety.
Yeah. Like my engagement ring. I haven't checked that in months. And that used to be one of my biggest triggers. Like, I had to check it. I had to touch it. It would take me a long time to put it, you know, back into the drawer. And now I haven't even touched it. Like, that fell off.
Yeah.
And now it's like the doors.
Yeah. So something I was like trying to walk you through earlier was the light bulb moment doesn't have to be diagnosis. It can be just you figuring it out and understanding, oh, okay, this is a part of my life. Now, if I need resources, I can find them on my own. I don't have to go to a doctor. I can Google things about OCD if I'm confused, so on and so forth.
I think that's it. I think I had no desire to understand it. And I think that's, if I had the desire to understand it, then I would have that light bulb moment, but I don't have it. Like, I do, but I don't. Like, in my mind, I just, and maybe that's part of my anxiety, is I don't want to learn. I don't want to connect more dots about why I am the way that I am.
Yeah.
I just kind of, I don't know. I don't want to know the truth.
Like the only therapy for it is like
talk therapy.
Or, well, no, actually, like the most effective therapy is, I forgot what they call it, but like when you have the urge to check, you don't let yourself check it. And you sit through the uncomfortableness of the anxiety until it passes. And then by then you've retrained your brain to understand that you can make it through it without doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's kind of why I tell you, like, things have just fallen off, where there have been moments where I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not about to get up. I'm way too comfortable in my bed. But even if it does pass, the intrusive thoughts sometimes win, and they'll come back and be like, well, if someone breaks in the middle of the night and kills you, then it's your fault. So you're really going to let your family down just because you didn't lock the door? And it's like, oh my God, you're fucking right. Let's get up.
That's another thing that I think we've only barely touched on before, is that part of it, like a big theme of it, is that it will be your fault. Like, if your things get stolen, it'll be your fault. If your house burns down, it'll be your fault. If somebody breaks in and kills you, it'll be your fault. Like, it's something about the fault in it. Because you didn't check it.
Yeah.
It's going to be your fault.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I don't know.
But
see,
like, whatever.
I don't know. See, that's what I'm saying. Like,
are you whatever about it because you are afraid to dig deeper, or because it really just doesn't matter?
I think both. I think I am afraid to dig deeper as to like what, because like what started it? What in me triggered it? Like what event?
And see me, I wanna Google what kind of trauma induces OCD. See, because to me, I would be like, okay, I want to tie this back to this event, heal myself from that event, and then maybe my OCD will go away. You know what I mean? Like, that's how my brain works. Like, how do we put all the puzzle pieces together and then...
See, me, I'm like, I'll just suffer. Like, it is what it is. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to unpack whatever that may be. Like, my brain's like blocking it out for a good reason. And I'm going to trust my brain and be like, yeah, no, it's fine. I'm not going to.
Have you considered there's other parts of your life that are blocked because there are other things you're blocking?
Oh, absolutely. You ever get those moments where, like, as a kid, you believe something so strongly, but then as an adult, you're like, that didn't happen. So I think that's my fear. And, like, I don't want to unpack what caused this. Like, I don't want to think about what could potentially have happened that my brain has been
blocking out.
Yeah. Or, like, I think it's a dream and it's really a memory. And it's like, oh, fuck, I don't want to deal with that shit. Like, I don't want. Okay. Oh, I'll give you a perfect example. Okay. So today I was learning about a case about, his name is Rainar something. He's Indonesian, but I forget when this happened.
Trigger warning. Angelica is about to generalize 2 true crime stories involving rape and suicidal ideation. Listen with care.
He is the criminal with the most convicted rapes. Like, over convicted, I think it was only like 100 something. But he's had over confirmed 200 victims.
Oh my God.
That he raped within 2 years, right? Sorry, this took a wild turn, but bear with me, right? Now, many of his victims were drugged when this happened. So a lot of them, when they woke up in his apartment, had no idea what happened to them. Majority of them would not. Majority of them, like, he would tell them, the rapist, he'd be like, oh yeah, you were down at the bar and you were very sluggish and I offered you a place to sleep and you just spent the night here and that's all that happened. And the guys would be like, well, it was male and male. And the guys would be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you so much for watching out for me and keeping me safe. I appreciate that. And then they would leave. Only 2 people reported it to the police that they thought something was wrong. And only like 40 victims came to testify in the court. But the victims that didn't come to, like, before they came to testify, the cops had to then tell the victims, like, once they confirmed who they were, they had to tell the victims what happened to them. And a lot of them, okay, some of them had an idea or glimpses of what could have happened because they had a gut feeling, but some of them literally had no idea.
And, like, could have went their whole lives without knowing.
Could have went their whole lives without knowing. But now that they know, they're in fucking therapy. They can't have, like, normal lives with their spouses. They have trouble being touched. Some of them have tried to commit suicide. And so in my thought process, I know this is very extreme. It's like, why no? Why know what caused the trauma? Like, why know the trauma that caused? You know what I mean? Like,
I can't speak for the guys in the situation because
trust me, that's so extreme, and I know it.
Yeah, I can't speak for the guys in the situation because I don't know how their lives were, but your body keeps the score. So the reason why I know is because no matter if your mind knows or not, your body knows.
Yeah,
and that could be keeping you from, not you specifically, but the royal you, keeping you from experiencing things in life, causing a large part of your anxiety or depression, and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
Like, you could have anxiety about, intrusive thoughts about dying in a plane crash every day, even though you never get on a plane. But that could be linked to something that happened in your past that's totally not even related. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's very interesting too. Yeah, I mean, yeah, who knows? You're right. The body does keep the score. And I think that's something that a lot of people overlook is that even if it's psychological trauma, it can manifest physically. Yeah. Like,
even sickness.
I listened to true crime. It's pretty aggressive sometimes. And there was another story of a girl who had been, like, physically physically, of course it's physically, sorry, violently raped for over 10 years. And once she was finally out of it, she had to get a hysterectomy. She couldn't have kids. And I was like, wait, like what? And then I was like, wait, is there a link between, like, what's that word?
Infertility?
Infertility and violent rape. Like, wait, how is that how does that correlate? And it's because your body keeps the score. It's because your body, all that stress,
it's like rejecting
that, and the follicles will overproduce and fall out before they're ready. Yep. I forget what else I read, but it's just insane to me, like how much, even if it's not physical abuse, it could be mental. It could lead to endometriosis. Just a lot of things, and I'm like, wow, that's like things that people don't really talk about or think about. I know this took a really wild turn.
Something very hopeful though is the advances with therapy now. Like, what's the one that we've been talking about?
Oh my God, you scared me. I'm like, wait, is something over there?
What's it called? The one where you're like hypnotized almost?
Oh, EMDR.
Thank God. Okay.
Eye movement.
EMDR therapy. That's where there's hope after we've found it this long. Because what happens is it's almost like hypnotism, but you're still present. You're not completely under the control of someone else. But basically your therapist will use like a sound, like snapping, or like your hand moving back and forth.
I can't move my chair up. 1 second. Okay.
And that will put you into a state where, imagine you have a file cabinet in your brain. Or actually, you have 2 file cabinets in your brain. And one is located on the logical side of your brain, and one's located on the emotional side of your brain. And your therapist during EMDR will put you into a state of being able to kind of look through those files on both sides. And whatever feeling, whatever your subconscious feels,
go back to therapy, man.
Whatever your subconscious feels that you need to work through, the little people in your brain will look through the files of whatever you need to look through, pull out one that's on the emotional side of the brain that may be causing anxiety, depression, whatever, and then you will work through it during that EMDR session. And people say during the session, you would think that you would be really scared because you're working through something that's a scary emotional thing, but you're actually not scared. You actually feel very neutral about it. And because you're in the safety of like your therapist's quote unquote control, which that you're not completely controlled, but, and then once you've worked through it, it refiles that memory on the logical side of your brain so that when something triggers that in your everyday life, it doesn't affect you the same way. It doesn't cause the anxiety and depression. Yep. It causes you to be like, oh, that's a thing that happened to me and I'm neutral about it now.
Right.
Because logically, you know that thing wasn't your fault. That thing didn't mean anything of your worth or who you are. That thing is not to be feared anymore. And whatever else that you needed to work through during that time. So there is hope when it comes to things like advancements in therapy, because EMDR is relatively new and not very many therapists are trained in it. But if you can find a therapist trained in EMDR and you need to work through some shit, I know it's going to sound scary, but
I just thought of something.
Go ahead.
Have you ever had a guilty conscience as a kid?
Yeah.
Like if mom's favorite glass sculpture broke and you know you didn't do it, but you're like, oh my God, but what if I did? Oh, I had that as a kid. Well, what if that goes back to my feeling like it's my fault?
Well, so one version of intrusive thoughts is like
I know it wasn't me, but like, what if?
What if that person that died on the highway last week, what if I ran them over and I don't remember that I did it?
Oh my God!
That's a version of OCD intrusive thoughts. Actually, me and Katie were just talking about this.
Maybe I do need to look into my OCD.
Me and Katie were just talking about this at work the other day.
See, it's just things that I just don't talk about that I'm like, it's safe up here.
Yeah, I mean, other people struggle with the same thought.
For example, like today, right? I don't want anyone thinking that I'm doing something wrong. So Mary, my coworker, she makes bracelets and other jewelry, and she had it all sprawled out on a table. And I was gonna look at them and buy one off of her, but then she got up to use the bathroom. So I was like, okay, Angelica, you have to wait till she comes back. That way she can see you walking over there and getting the bracelet that you want. Like, you cannot go now. You cannot start to view it now because God forbid you walk away, something's missing, and you're blamed for it. So I had to wait for her to come back, and then I got up to go see the bracelets. Like, I don't want anyone thinking that I did anything wrong.
Were you ever blamed for like stealing something that you didn't?
No, I don't think so. I don't know.
That's really very intriguing to me.
I literally sat there in those thoughts and I was just waiting for her to come back to her desk. Like, oh my God, can you just hurry up? Because I kind of want to look at the bracelets.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I can't do it now. I can't. Angelica, do not get up now. Like, it is detrimental that you do not get up.
So is it with close people, like people in your life closely to, like if I had a table full of bracelets here and I went to the bathroom, would you feel the same need?
Yeah, I probably would wait until you get back to start looking at them.
Huh. Interesting. Okay, so the thing I was going to say was there's a TV show produced by A&E, which, you know, they do...
A&E. I was like, A&E.
They do Hoarders. They do... what's the one with people who are addicted to stuff? What's it called?
My Strange Addiction.
No, well, that one too, but the one where... Intervention.
Oh.
They do all kinds of shows like that. Well, they did one with people with OCD where they got therapists that specialize in OCD. And they had people write into the show who wanted to cure their OCD. And this is how I found out about the, I almost had the word. What's it called? Where you're exposure therapy. That's the true cure to OCD is exposure therapy. But basically there was a girl on there who her worst thing was intrusive thoughts. And like, that was the thing that was keeping her from living her life basically. And one of her biggest things was like she couldn't be around any sharp objects because she was afraid that she would grab a sharp object and stab somebody with it and kill them. And not just like, oh, what if I grab this and stab somebody? Like she was afraid she was actually going to murder someone. And so she would purposely keep herself away from sharp objects. So you know what the therapist did?
Put her.
Sorry, it's storming,
okay,
guys.
It's okay, baby.
You heard that thunder.
Did he put her in a room of knives?
No, worse. He stabbed. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
He put her in a room full of murderers?
No, these are the actual murderers.
He stabbed her?
No. Okay.
She stabbed him.
Hold on. They're on the therapy couch and the therapist unrolls a full set of very sharp knives, big ones, small ones.
I think you told me about this before.
Okay. And he went as far. So, okay, this is part of the aversion therapy, right? She has to sit through the anxiety feeling of being in front of those knives and retraining her brain to understand she's not going to do anything with them. This therapist was so confident in this treatment plan that he had her hold a knife up to his throat. He said, and he held her hand up there too. You're going to hold this to my throat until the feeling passes. And they sat there for like 5-10 minutes, just like that. And she never slit his throat. And then after that, her aversions or her intrusive thoughts were better. She had to just keep doing that until she retrained her brain to understand that she's not actually going to do that. It's just a thought. Thoughts are not facts.
Kelsey, I have that about myself.
You think you're going to stab yourself?
Just anything to hurt myself. If I grab a knife, how many fingers can I chop off? When I'm opening the garbage disposal, what if I just stick a finger in there?
Yeah, like what would happen?
Yeah, what would happen? Or like if I fell down these stairs, how many bones would I break?
Yeah, that's an OCD thing. Did you know that?
No!
Well, now you know. So did you think you were crazy before for thinking those things?
No, I never I just thought everyone had these thoughts.
I have intrusive thoughts sometimes too, not as frequently or not as extreme, but most of mine are based in a fear that could like probably actually happen. Like one of my worst fears, and this was more prevalent when Cash was a baby, was that I would be at work all day and something would happen to Travis while I was at work, and then Cash would be alone the whole day to like fend for himself. Like that was like my worst fear. Not that something would happen to Cash. Excuse me. Not that something would happen to Cash, but something would happen to Travis, and the feeling that my baby would be alone all day by himself to fend for himself, not understanding what's going on, not knowing why daddy's not coming for him. That feeling was like, what if that happens? Which is probable, not likely, but not zero either. So we've totally skipped over the thing we were actually talking about when we started recording, which was like the similarities. We were talking about, I was trying to explain to you like task initiation, like.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So you were saying, so I was saying to you, one thing that can help people when they get diagnosed, or at least when it doesn't have to be diagnosis. It's just the light bulb moment for them to figure out that this is what it is, that they can get the resources they need to figure out, whether that be online, whether that be a therapist, whatever, to figure out how to live their life in a way that is good for them, that doesn't fit to societal norms. Like all this talk that we have about not conforming to societal norms comes from my realization that I have ADHD. Because people who have ADHD, they can't function in regular societal norms. Like all of our laundry needing to be hung up in the closet or folded in a drawer. That's not a normal thing for people with ADHD. They may do it sometimes, but most of the time their clothes are in a basket all the time, whether they're clean or dirty.
Yeah, so Kelsey was saying like I could be doing laundry, see a pile of clothes that need to be folded, and I'm on the couch and my brain literally is like, nope, we're not going to do that right now.
Yeah, my brain will block me from doing it.
Yeah, and I was telling her like I don't mean to be insensitive, but that does not make sense to me, because if I see a pile of clothes, I'm going to fold it. Like I can't just not do, like she was saying, you know, like you can have those light bulb moments of like, oh, this is why I'm late, or this is what's hindering my life in this way. But I'm like, no, because for me, I don't need that light bulb moment to know that. I need to just evaluate my life and, okay, what can I do to help improve it? Like, I know why I'm late in the morning. It's because I go to bed late. It's because I wake up late. It's because I drag my feet getting ready. It's because I do this, this, and that. Like, I'm the reason why I'm late, and I know what needs to be done in order to do those things to not be late.
Right.
Or like when it comes to initiating tasks, like as I'm doing chores, I'll see something that needs to be done and I'll add it to my list and I'll make sure it gets it done. Like to me, there's just I can't even think of my brain blocking that. From doing that.
Another part that's missing
that would piss me off.
Another part that's missing is like with people who have executive dysfunction, which is what I described with like wanting to have something done but can't get my brain to do it, is it's gone. That's another part of ADHD. It's literally gone from my brain.
Oh.
What were you just saying?
I can't imagine my brain not being able to do that. I'd be pissed.
Oh, I was going to say a part of this conversation, especially with ADHD, is that, you know, before knowing you have ADHD, society trains you to shame yourself into being a better functioning person.
Oh.
And that's what you just described.
Yeah, I have shame.
You're like, you're a shitty person if you don't get this laundry done right now. And then you shame yourself into doing it. Or, I need to keep my household up. And if I don't, some of it's OCD, obviously, because you need things to be a particular way. But part of the conversation is shame, whether that's direct or indirect.
No, you're absolutely right. Because my thought process in the morning is, if I were to die today, like if I were out in the world and I passed away and people came to my house, how would they find it?
Yeah. But people's not going to care what your house looks like if you're
People's
dead.
is not going to care.
People's is not going to care what your house looks like if you're dead.
But see, that matters to me.
People are going to be more concerned with the fact that you're dead than what your house looks like.
Oh my God, she's dead. Ew, her house is so dirty.
Yeah. Her house has dog hair. It's like a dog lives here. But no, like, so what you were saying, like,
you're right. I'm more concerned with people thinking I'm dirty than thinking I'm dead. That's not okay.
The beginning of your conversation was like, you know, for me, if I'm having trouble in my life, then I just need to evaluate my life and be a better person. You're just shaming yourself.
Say a better person, but
that's what you mean.
I know what to do.
I need to be better at whatever
improve.
I'm doing.
Yeah. Like here's the goal, and I have identified steps to get to that goal, and I need to take those steps to reach that goal.
So let me ask you a question. So we talked a little bit about being late, right? We both have that in common. In the morning,
we see each other sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, she's late.
She's late to work. It's going to take her at least another 20 to get there. She's already 5 minutes late. So think about this. So in the morning, you're running late, whatever, and you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do better the next morning. I'm going to get up early.
Oh my God. I say that to myself every day. Like, I'll be better tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. So then,
whoa.
So then the
That's
next
not okay
morning,
either.
you're like, why can't you just get out on time? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Wouldn't it be better
I'm
to
so mean to
understand
myself.
what time blindness is and put things in effect to help you get out of the house on time? Do you know what time blindness is?
Yeah. Wait, now I'm starting to think, do I have task initiation problems? Because I know the steps. I know what I need to do to get to where I need to be. I just don't do it.
Okay, two things. We're going to come back to time blindness because I don't think you truly understand it.
You've explained it to me, but I haven't looked into it. No.
So, task initiation, so executive dysfunction, anybody can have that issue at any time in their life, not just people with ADHD. The difference is people who don't have ADHD or any type of neurodivergence, they have, I was about to say erectile dysfunction.
Oh no.
They have executive dysfunction. People with ADHD have executive dysfunction every day.
It's still ED.
Yeah. They have executive dysfunction every day of their lives, like pretty much all day, as if they're not medicated.
Oh my God.
People who do
me.
not have neurodivergence, they notice executive dysfunction more when they're highly stressed, more than when they're highly anxious or when they're highly depressed.
Mm.
So if you have a really anxious day, then yeah, it might be hard to come home and do the laundry. Or if you have a highly stressful day, like you have like a court date coming up and it's really on your mind, it's very stressful, or you had a really stressful day at work, then yes, it's going to be harder to come home and function. But it's like that every day for people with ADHD all the time. We actually have to work harder to get around the executive dysfunction to be able to do the tasks. Let's go back to time blindness. So time blindness means when you look at your clock in the morning, you're like, okay, it's 8:05. I have to leave at 8:20. So that means I have 15 minutes. I'm going to just go ahead and finish my hair and then I'll get up and go. Then maybe 5-10 minutes has passed and you still think it's 8:05. Is that true?
No, it's not true.
Okay.
No, that's not true, actually. My thing is, okay, it's 8:05. I'm going to brush my teeth, wash my face, and that should take 5 minutes. But then that takes 10 minutes. And then I'm like, okay, I got to leave in 20 minutes. My hair and makeup, that should take enough time. Like 20 minutes to do my makeup or whatever I need to do to get myself ready, dressed, and etc. And then 20 minutes to cook food and eat it. But then one of those tasks takes longer than what I initially. It's like I'm budgeting my time, but it doesn't stay within the budget.
So that is another version of time blindness where you under or over predict how long something's going to take.
Yes.
But in a pattern, like every day.
Yes.
If it happens one time, that's not time blindness, obviously, because you just made a assumption incorrectly
Poor
once.
decision.
Right. But if every day you think that brushing your teeth, doing your hair, and doing your makeup is going to take 10 minutes, and then the next day you think it's going to take 10 minutes, and then the next day you think it's going to take 10 minutes.
Exactly. I never adjust it. Like, actually, it's 15 minutes. Give yourself more time. Nope. I'm just like, I can do it in 10 minutes. And then I can't. I know that. It's proven that I can't do that.
So if I were your therapist and I said, okay.
Practically are.
So all of... basically
she did better than my last two, so we've got a lot farther.
And we've talked about, like, when you do go to therapy, you're gonna be like, okay, this is what me and my best friend Kelsey have figured out so far, so let's start there.
I know my anxiety triggers. I know I have OCD, and I know I have I almost said secure attachment, God, I wish. Anxious attachment style. Like, let's moving on.
Yep. So something really big with ADHD that I think anyone with ADHD should know, and that has been a light bulb moment for me, is circumventing barriers. Okay. So for instance, I realized that I have a sensory issue with getting my hands wet. Sorry, it's not all the time, but specifically in my kitchen, I don't like getting my hands wet. So if I'm going to do the dishes, I have to figure out how to get past that barrier of not wanting to get my hands wet, because my brain will block me from doing the dishes if subconsciously I'm thinking about not wanting to get my hands wet. So what I have to do is say, okay, when you're at the store, buy a box of gloves. And they can't be the giant yellow rubber gloves because I can't feel what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's not satisfying enough to be able to, like, feel what I'm doing. So like disposable gloves. So if I'm going to do the dishes, or if I'm going to touch raw meat, or if I'm going to pretty much do anything that's going to get my hands wet in the kitchen, I always 100% put gloves on. If I'm going to cut meat that's wet, or literally anything. So that's a good example of like, you figure out, some people don't even know what the barrier is. Like it took me a long time to figure out that my barrier with dishes was that I didn't want to get my hands wet. Or that my barrier with cooking was that I didn't want to get my hands wet. Another thing for me was, I'm trying to think of another barrier that I can explain. So I was trying to connect that to your time blindness. So the barrier is that you have trouble understanding how long a task takes, and therefore realizing how long it's been since you last checked the time, and now you're late, and now you still have 3 other things to do before you can leave.
And I can't just, sometimes I can skip things, and sometimes I'm like, I can't skip this.
Mm-hmm. So something you can start with is in the morning. So you say you're supposed to get up at 8 a.m., whatever, 7 a.m. Let's say 7, because you're supposed to be at work at 8, right?
Technically 7:30. Well,
damn.
Well, that's another thing is people make fun of me, but I'm like, I stay till 5:30 or 6. I am
Right.
the most productive at 3:30.
Yeah.
Like, give me a task at 3:30 and it'll be done by 4. Give me a task at 8:30 or 9, it's gonna get done at 4.
Yeah, it's still gonna be done at 4.
Yeah, like.
So what I was gonna say was, so like, say you have to be up at 7 and you need to leave the house by 8. You set your alarm to get up at 7, and then you set alarms for every 10 minutes.
I know
until
you
8
told
o'clock.
me to do that, and I have not done that.
Because what it is every time you are forced to check the clock and know that it's been 10 more minutes, and that you only have 20 minutes, and then you only have 10 minutes, and then you only have 5 minutes, whatever. So that way you have a constant countdown to when you need to leave the house, and you can go faster.
Yeah,
or you can remove things from your.
Yep.
So that's the point of
prioritize.
That's the point of figuring out the barrier, right? So you've seen, okay, we've just sit here and talked about what the barrier is. It's not that you look at the clock and think, oh, it's 8:05, and then 10 minutes later you still think it's 8:05, because that's part of my issue. But also, I don't know how long things take. I also don't want to get out of bed. That's another story.
Oh my God.
That's morning person versus night person.
Christ.
But figuring out the barrier, some people don't know their barrier until you talk about it. And then you're like, oh, that's the thing that's really blocking me. That's the roadblock. So if I can find a way, if I can create a little side road to get around the roadblock, then I can function better. And it's all about functioning, not about being a better person.
I guess with this whole diagnosis light bulb thing, I think it's, like you said, less to do about, yeah, of course, if you need the diagnosis, go and get it.
Right.
But like,
well, some people need to be medicated, so they need the diagnosis, or they need IEPs at school, so they need the diagnosis for that.
But I think you're right. Like it's knowing about it, because had I not known that my OCD is linked to my anxiety, I wouldn't know how to calm my anxiety to then calm my OCD. Yeah. Like, yes, it's a process still, and I don't always do it, but I know that it's linked, and if there's a reason why I feel that way.
Right. It's not just like, oh, I don't know why this makes me so anxious.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to protect my belongings, and I can do that. I'm capable of that.
Well, I didn't know that up until like a year and a half ago.
Right.
I was just dealing with it. I'm like, oh, well, that's just the way I am.
That's what I'm saying. Now I'm not just being crazy, or I'm not just anxious for no reason. Like, why do I feel this way and like so full of angst because of it? I'm just trying to protect my belongings, which is a normal thing, and I'm capable of protecting my belongings. You know what I mean? It's a neutral thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of mental health is figuring out what's neutral. Like, remember we talked about morally neutral? Like, people who get up in the morning are not more morally better than anyone else.
Yeah.
Whatever time you get up during the day is morally neutral if you're able to function later in the day rather than like you were just saying. Whether or not you can keep your house clean doesn't make you a better person. If you like your house clean, then you clean your house. And if you like it a little bit, cluttery, and you can find things in that clutter, and that's how you function, then that's fine. That's just how you are, and that's morally neutral. Something else we were talking about was back to the conversation of the light bulb moment, and like whether or not figuring it out is beneficial. is, this is prevalent a lot with people with ADHD. And I found myself in the situation where growing up, if you didn't know you had ADHD, people called you lazy, people called you, whatever words they called you, because society thinks that you should fit in this box. And, I did think I was lazy. I was told I was lazy multiple times. And I didn't understand why I couldn't just get up and clean my room like other people, or I couldn't just leave on time like other people, or, I'm sure there's 100 other things I could name. But when I figured out after I had cash, which by the way is the most common time in a woman's life to figure out that she has ADHD, is after she has a child. And I think it has to do with hormones, which we could talk about. But once I figured out that I had ADHD, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm not lazy. I'm not a bad person for being late, or I'm not bad at being human. There's just barriers that I need to figure out and go around to function better. And I've already started doing those things. For instance, just knowing what I can and can't remember, or knowing what I will and will not remember, I can put things into place to make sure that they don't get forgotten. Like if I know I'm going to forget to pay a bill, put it on a calendar. If I know like tomorrow, right now I can't call and make my car payment because they're closed, but I'll forget that tomorrow. So I'll set a reminder on my phone for 4:00 tomorrow, make the car payment. And then when I see that reminder pop up on my phone, I'll call and make the car payment. Another thing I do at work, so this is another thing that's beneficial. Everyone at work knows I have ADHD, and that is beneficial for me because they understand how my brain works now. And I feel more seen at work. I feel more understood at work. I feel not different. Not even not different than anyone else, but even more that I have a superpower because everyone understands how my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of those things that I'll do at work is my supervisor, Dr. Kelsey, if I have to do something on Monday and it's Friday, she's not even in the building. I'll send her a chat on Google Chat that's like, remind me to do this thing on Monday. And then when she gets to work on Monday and she sees that chat, and then I come to her on Monday and I'm like, okay, what's the plan for today? She'll be like, you said you needed to do this. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do need to do that. Like, even like using other people like that, like that helps, especially at work. Another thing with task initiation, and a lot of ADHD people, a lot of even depressed people struggle with this, is getting yourself to get in the shower. Like, I want to have a shower, but getting myself to get up and get in it is a struggle. For some people, it's a sensory thing. Like, taking my clothes off, I'm going to be cold, and then I'm going to be hot, and then I'm going to be cold again and wet, and like, oh, yeah. So something I realized that helps me.
Like, I'm comfortable right here, right now.
Right. I don't know why this helps. I don't know the science behind it, but something that helps me is if I ask Travis to turn on the shower for me. I don't know why that helps because I'm not touching the water anyway. I know exactly where to put it to be at the right temperature, so I don't need to test the water. But if he starts it, then I feel obligated to get in it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's already running. Might as well just jump in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of task initiation and let's say erectile dysfunction again. Executive dysfunction, especially for people with ADHD, is every task that needs to be done, they split into 1,000 little tasks. Like how we talked about on the ADHD episode about laundry. Mm-hmm. Laundry to an ADHD person is 20 different smaller tasks. To a neurotypical person, it's just like, oh, I'm just going to go do the laundry. I'm going to put the clothes in and I'm going to take them out. Then I'm going to put them in and take them out. But to someone with ADHD, it's a lot more steps than that. So I think with the shower thing, removing the first step makes it easier to then do the next step.
Because you don't have to, you're not the one initiating it.
Yeah, I'm not initiating it, right.
Someone else doing it for you.
Exactly. So I think, I think we've had a good conversation about benefits versus whatever. I don't think, I know that there are certain instances where it may not be beneficial, but I don't think it will hurt. I think it certainly does not hurt to know.
Yeah.
If you have some type of neurodivergence or some type of mental illness that you can then get resources for, that will make sense to you, that will validate you even that you're just fine. You just got to work around some things. You just got to learn about yourself. I mean, I feel like I know myself so much better now that I know I have ADHD than before. Like, I know who I am.
I think also, though, it's the stigma
Mm-hmm.
of what you could possibly have and what people could possibly think after knowing that you have this. And that goes with any, neurodivergent disorder. I don't know what you'd call that.
Yeah, neurodivergence.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. People feel differently about different things, and some people may not be open to it. Like me, I'm like, oh, I don't really want to know what else is wrong with me. Like, I kind of like.
Yeah. I will say I may be a little bit privileged in the fact that it's ADHD I'm talking about, which is a little bit more socially acceptable than like autism or OCD or whatever the situation may, even like depression. It's more socially acceptable than depression even though the symptoms cross over.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, so like at my job, after I got hired, like 2 years into me getting hired, everyone had to take like a personality test. And because that's how moving forward they were going to recruit people, is you have to fit a certain personality type or they won't even look at you for a specific position.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy.
How's that legal?
I don't know.
Maybe it just like, it's not illegal, so it's just.
I mean, how could it be illegal?
You can't be hired if you fit a certain personality trait. How does that any different from you can't be hired if your skin's a certain color or if your gender's a certain way?
No, I see it. Okay, they explain it more of like if they're looking for a salesperson, if they're hiring for a salesperson, they're going to want the convincer. Or I forget what the personality name is, but they're looking for these specific traits.
Was there 4 different ones?
No, I think there's more than 4.
Okay.
But and if a person applies for this position and they don't have these traits, they're not going to interview you.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
So this happened after I was hired in 2 years in or whatever. And when my personality came back, I forget what mine was, but it does not fit for an accountant. So when my boss was like, all the higher ups got training for it. And the guy that was doing the training, he goes, Bill, Angelica, I am so surprised that she is still here with you, like after 2 years. And Bill's like, what do you mean? My boss. And the guy goes, well, is Angelica bored? Because this must be so like awful for her. Like she must be bored all the time and she must blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And when he like brought this up to me, I'm like, I know, I'm a fraud. But he asked me, he was like, how do you feel? Like, is this okay? Like, what do you need from me? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, I do get bored sometimes. So I just need more like duties, more responsibilities, more projects, like keep me busy. But I think thinking back on it, I think that part of my OCD is also what keeps me like there. Like, you know what I mean? Like there are certain traits to OCD has a certain sense of organizing and a certain, like things have to be certain ways. So like, even though my personality is not accounting per se, I am still able to think, okay, things have to be a certain way, which accountants are very much black and white. It's either this or it's that. In my brain, I'm able to be like, okay, yeah, what's this because of this? And it has to be this way because of that. Like I'm able to set my personality aside and do what I got to do for work.
Do you feel like when, like, say you're doing, like, balancing or whatever, and things...
I love balancing.
I was going to say, when it balances out perfectly, do you get a dopamine hit?
Yes. I love it. I love it. And then when it doesn't, I'm like, oh, challenge accepted. Like, where am I off a penny?
Yeah.
Even if it's a penny, I'm like, where is it?
So, like, certain things like that are like that for me at work, too. Like... if I'm filling something and I have 20 of these things on the shelf and I just so happen to have to fill 20 of them, like I get a dopamine hit from that. Like things matching up like that.
Yeah.
Or like I'm a spreadsheet girl. Like I love a good spreadsheet. I've been doing a lot of spreadsheets lately actually. And like being able to compile things in the list that they're supposed to be in and then complete them and hand them off to someone and be like, look what I did. Look at that pretty spreadsheet.
I don't like spreadsheets.
Well, yeah, I could see why you don't. But for me, I don't have to use them. I just choose to use them for organizational reasons.
I wish I was more organized. I am to an extent, but not really. That sucks for you.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
actually that brings me to another point. People with ADHD are better at their job than they are at home.
Huh.
Because whatever they're doing at their job gives them that dopamine hit. They're also on someone else's routine and they're obliging to someone else
Excuse me.
rather than having to hold up their own standards or their own whatever situation they're having at home. Does that make sense?
So at
Like
home,
they're accountable to someone else.
kind of like the initiation test. If someone else does it for you,
Yes.
you're obliged to do that.
Right.
When you get a test done at home, though, do you get a dopamine hit?
I do. On the weekends, I usually do like either a deep clean or an organization project that gives me like a huge dopamine hit. But what's crazy about that, and you'll see TikTok videos of people talking about this, like, this is what it's like living with ADHD. I have 2 doctor's appointments that I need to make that I still haven't done in the last month. I need to call the IRS to figure out my taxes, and I need to take my car to get my engine fixed. But I'm going to sit here and do this organizational task instead.
That is terrifying for me. Like, I cannot. Like, small things I'll let go, but bigger things, they need to be handled right now. Like, I need to call and talk to somebody about my mortgage payment.
Yeah.
Light bulb in the hallway, that can wait.
Yeah. So, like, one of the key character traits for ADHD is avoidance. And it's because it seems too daunting. It's too overwhelming to tackle it. So it's like, I'm going to do it later.
But the more you ignore it, the bigger the problem.
I know. Trust me, I know.
Oh my God.
But what happens is I'm like, oh, look at this little organizational task I could do. This is going to be such a big dopamine hit. I'm going to feel so good from doing this. I'm going to feel like shit after having to call and do these things.
But maybe you won't.
Maybe I won't, but my brain thinks I'm going to feel like shit. So I'd rather do this organizational task instead.
Okay. What I don't understand from that is how the fuck does your brain choose that for you? Because my brain's like, you got to do it. You just have to put your big girl pants on and do it. Like, my brain yells at me, like, get it done right now. And then I'm like, okay, I will.
Yeah. Nope.
Your brain's just like, nah.
I mean, I'm going to worry about it. I'm going to worry about it, but my brain won't let me do it. Isn't that insane? Like, I'm going to sit here and worry about the fact that I have not called to make this appointment, or I have not taken the car in to get the engine fixed and it could break down at any moment. Not my specific car, but I'm going to worry about that, but my brain won't let me fix it. But if I was at your house and you were like, oh, man, I really need to take my car in, I'm like, let's go do it right now. Because it's not my problem. It doesn't sound scary to me.
What was that phrase I said?
I'm like stressing you out.
And one of our beginning episodes, it said something like, damn it, brain, you're supposed to work with me, not against me.
Yeah.
It'd be your own brain sometimes.
It'd be your own brain. Yep. Yep.
Ew.
I know.
Hey guys, did you know?
We have merch.
Merch.
Like really nice and cheap merch.
Really nice and cheap.
Like t-shirts are like $15.
$15.
And we have magnets for $5. And stickers for $5.
Yep.
That's the cheapest thing on the store. We also have phone cases, hoodies, hats. Do it for the matriarchy merch, which those t-shirts are around $15. So go check that out. You can find it in our link tree on our Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Or if you can't find it, just message us and we'll help you.
Get one for yourself, your mom, your dad, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your kids, your grandma, your grandpa, aunt,
Your
uncle,
brother, your
cousins.
sister. Ready.
Everybody.
All right, go check it out.
Okay, bye.
Okay. So something else we were going to talk about in regards to the topic today, which honestly, that was not what we had planned. We had 2 other things planned, so we'll just have to push those to another week. But was like the stigma around some of these neurodivergences and stuff like that. I think something that is really a big problem is some people think, and reasonably so, some people think like, oh, everyone thinks they're on the autism spectrum. Everyone thinks they're ADHD. Everyone thinks they're OCD.
Well, because they're hot words. Like, they're hot, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, they're in media a lot. But that reasonably so, back in the day, you didn't have the internet to connect with other people that were just like you.
Yeah,
Back in the day, mental health diagnosis wasn't at where it is today.
Which is why I hate when people are like, oh my God, there's so much more homosexuals nowadays.
Mhm.
No, there've always been.
They're just out and comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that too, vulnerability. Like, vulnerability is more popular now and more accepted. So, of course, you can be more vulnerable with your doctor instead of like, oh, I'm struggling with OCD. I'm just going to shove it down.
Yeah.
I'm just going to hide it the best I can.
Well, that and the ability to connect with so many people at the same time.
Mhm.
I post a video or I post a picture or we put out a podcast and boom, connected to 30 to 100 people.
That feel the same exact way.
Yeah.
Or don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think there's got to be a balance. Of course, like when it is a hot topic and a lot of people are talking about it, then yeah, it's going to be on everybody's mind. And maybe they're like, well, maybe I do and maybe I don't, because certain things cross over. But I think we can't say, well, everybody thinks they are, because maybe a lot of people are. Who's to say that there are not more neurodivergent people than not?
Yeah.
Who's to say? Nobody knows that. Over the span of time, maybe... say all of the presidents of the United States, maybe 80% of them were actually neurodivergent, and we never knew. You know what I mean? You just never know that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yes, there is stigma, especially around autism. And I actually watched a video the other day. I forgot what it's called. It's a YouTube channel that does this specific setting with all types of different groups of people, where they take opinions of this type of group of people and the opposite. So like people who are pro-life and people who are pro-choice, and they put them in the same room, and then they give them question prompts, and they say, stand up if you believe so-and-so, so-and-so. And so some people will stand up and some people won't, and they'll have the people explain what they believe, and then the other side will say what they believe, and then they'll have a discussion about it. And I'll have to look up what it's called. I'll put it in the show notes. But I actually saw, it was yesterday, and it was people who are autistic, and I don't think I thought originally it was people who are autistic and people who are neurotypical, but I believe that it was all people who are autistic. And they talked about stigma a lot, and they talked about representation in movies and TV and television. And TV and television, those are the same thing, guys. And it was just really fascinating that these people, at least in this point of their lives, were very thankful for their diagnosis and very sure of themselves and who they are, but also understood that the world is not sure of them and that the world is not understanding of who they are.
Wow.
So it's an interesting dynamic where the person who actually has the neurodivergence is like,
I'm
this
cool.
is me.
I'm good.
This is me, and this is who I am, and that's who I'm going to be.
Yeah.
But the world still can't get on board with that. And so it's an interesting place to be, I think.
That is very interesting.
But yeah, that was I work with someone who's autistic, diagnosed autistic, and sometimes we'll just be talking throughout the day, and I'll think, oh, I think that's a symptom of the autism, because that was strange. And someone who didn't know that he was autistic may have even taken it offensively. Like, for instance, not too long ago, my supervisor was talking about how her friend announced that they were pregnant. And she was telling him how there was this funny way that they announced it or whatever. And then the guy that I work with who's autistic, he said, oh, do you want to have kids? And I was like, and that's not something you ask a lady. Oh, I said his name. I'll bleep his name. I'm like, that's not something you ask a lady. And he was like, oh, I am so sorry. I didn't know. I'm like, that's okay. You don't know what you don't know. It's fine. Now you know.
But see, I wouldn't think of that as a symptom of autism. I would just see that as a symptom of something just some people just don't know. Do you remember?
Not that alone, but
okay.
In addition to other things.
Yeah, of course.
But to me, I was like if he was in any other workplace, somebody may have gotten really upset with him for doing that. But because we know the things that we know about him,
right?
We're like, hey, just so you know,
yeah,
you don't ask anybody.
You're a little more empathetic.
And I mean, I think there was even times before where he's asked people's age, and you're like women's age.
But see, I think that's okay. Remind me to tell you about my work shit. But I think that's where remember when I said, I think social norms are constantly changing. So it's hard to know
Yes.
if it is a bad or a good thing. Like, I think back in the day, it was socially acceptable to ask a woman, oh, why aren't you having kids? You know what I mean? And but now we are more sensitive to these topics. And I don't mean sensitive in a bad way. I mean it in a good way. Like, hey, maybe we don't ask those questions.
Yeah.
But see, that's a new thing.
Yeah.
And
like you said, sensitive on both sides. Like me saying to him sensitively,
yeah.
hey, that's just not something we ask.
But also he's a guy. Like, who was going to tell him that you can't really ask that anymore?
Right.
So I get what you're saying, but then to me, it's like, there's so many things that I do that are weird and quirky that I think anybody else is weird and quirky. So, like, I get what you're saying. Maybe the diagnosis will help people understand how they are as a person. But in my mind, I'm like, can't we just all be empathetic and nice and get along and kumbaya? Like,
and like give the person the benefit of the doubt. Like maybe they just didn't know.
They just didn't know. That's how I always am. Like, oh, maybe they just didn't know. Like,
so, sorry. I'm trying to think. When I first started working with him, he said something that was really off-putting to me. And like I was genuinely offended until I realized that he was autistic. What was it? I want to say it was something racist.
Racist?
Yeah.
Is he white?
He's white, yes. I want to say he said so when I first started working with him, I was working with him almost every day. And at first, everyone, he was very prickly to everyone because
I like that term being described as someone who's very prickly.
He was very prickly to everyone because we were a very small unit of employees. So like we all know each other very well. And not only is he this very different person, but he's also the youngest person and has the humor of like a 10-year-old boy. So like sometimes when he's saying things that he thinks are funny, we're like, okay, that's not really that funny, but
really?
Yes. I'm trying to think of what it was. God, I'm gonna remember it later and then be like, oh, I should have fucking said that. I'll enter it here.
The instance I was trying to remember was my coworker saying that some of the names we saw that day sounded, quote, kind of black. End quote.
I hate her so much. I don't even know her. Anyways, he said something that was like offensive, and I was telling someone about it, and then later, like a week later maybe, he told me that he was autistic. And
how did he tell you? Like, how was this brought up, or how?
He was like, so something that's would be strange to other people is that he would just give you a random piece of information. Like it would be totally unprompted. He'll just give you a random piece of information and like, oh, okay, that's cool. And I would say he's pretty high functioning. Unless you spent time with him, you wouldn't know there's something different about him than other people.
Yeah.
But yeah, he told me that he was autistic and that he doesn't really like talking about it, but then proceeded to talk about it. And I was like, oh, okay. And also that he was homeschooled.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like,
so there was multiple contributing factors, but it is a symptom. Like, it has been a proven symptom of autism to not know when things are appropriate or not. He has to sometimes ask me if things are appropriate or not. And he knows now that I've worked with him for a while that I understand him in the best way that I can, and that I'm empathetic of him, and that if he has a question about whether or not something is socially acceptable, he can ask me. Even if he thinks it might be offensive, he can ask me and I'll say that's appropriate or it's not.
You know, I don't know if it's just me or if you feel this way, but for me, I've never really like labeled people like that. So like, I'm thinking about like any experience that I've had with neurodivergent people. Is that saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Like, do you remember this kid named, bleep this out, Yeah, like a
I knew you were going to say
hawthorn.
that name.
And like I never felt uncomfortable around him. I never felt weird with him. I never felt the need to like think of him as othered. You know what I mean? Like to me, he was just like, oh, that's just how he is. Like that's just I never processed what it really was. Like, I mean, he had autism and pretty severe. And I just didn't think, you know what I mean? Like I didn't really, maybe because I had the privilege of not quote unquote being around him all the time that I kind of didn't have to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, me and Maria were his counselors for a while.
Yeah.
And so that was like a big part. Well, we had to know that he was autistic for that reason. We had to know about him
Yeah.
to understand how to handle him.
I guess what we're trying to say is go get diagnosed.
Or at least, like, if you have a suspicion, confirm it for yourself.
Or Google, you know, don't self-diagnose.
Right, but, like, validate yourself.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what we're
your
trying
experience.
to get here.
Yeah.
That should be the name of the episode, Validate Your Experience.
Yeah, validate your experience. That's
I like
good.
that.
Yeah, I like that.
I think you...
Riley.
I think you brought me over to your side where I'm like, okay, yeah, I think it is. There's so many benefits to knowing rather than not knowing. And I think you've inspired me to look deeper into my OCD. Like, okay, all right, bitch, why are you this way?
I totally understand why, like, when we get to labels, it gets prickly. It gets scary to get close to a label because there's so much stigma on labels.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, that's your own internal stigma that makes you scared of the label. Because if you are not afraid of someone you know being diagnosed with autism, or if you didn't have your own internal stigma of autism, then you wouldn't be afraid of someone you love being labeled as autistic. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I don't have internal stigma, because I do. And working with this coworker has removed a lot of that stigma for me and made me understand him better, which again validates him from my perspective. Like, I'm able to validate his struggles or whatever.
Yeah.
He also has ADHD, so we have so many things in common. We literally joke about our ADHD 2 to 3 times a day, because I'll be like, do you do this? And he'll be like, yep. And it's interesting because usually men and women have very different ADHD symptoms. Men have more hyperactive and women have more inattentive. And so they present a little bit differently, but we have so many things in common when it comes to ADHD. And then I have another coworker who has been confirmed on the autism spectrum, but much more highly functioning. And he has so many things in common with her. So it's like he's a perfect split of the two of us. And so that is a really interesting dynamic at my job.
I was going to say I have
so much like exposure to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's on the daily. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had this coworker and I found out he was OCD and we were comparing notes. And I think I said this on the podcast where I'm like, oh, you're so much worse than me.
And he
goes,
thought you were worse.
You're way worse than me.
Yeah.
And I was like, hell no. Like, you got it really bad. But I think that's funny how, like, we're kind of blinded to our own faults. Like, you kind of hear someone else and you're like, oh my God, that's crazy. You do that?
Yeah.
Like, you know, him... the way that he stepped down the stairs or the way that he ate his food, I was like, oh my God, that's nuts.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you're the one fucking checking everything. And that's nuts.
That's nuts. Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's funny.
That's funny. I just thought of, like, also because I have ADHD in common with this coworker, I understand him better because I also understand ADHD. And so where some of his shortcomings, other people are frustrated with him,
Right.
not remembering to do things, or, you know, having a slower day because he's doing some really monotonous work, you know, whatever. I'm a little bit more compassionate about that because I understand it. I understand not being able to get through your work day because your work is so monotonous, or, you know, forgetting things. So I catch myself. Looks like Bolin is chasing something in his sleep.
He's moving. He's jerking.
Yeah. He's doing like this.
Oh, so cute. Yeah, he's probably out of it now.
No, he's still doing it.
Well, wake him up. Oh.
It's okay.
It's okay, babies.
He's like, is it time for bed yet? That's what his face looks like.
Sometimes he'll be on the bed and he'll just like wait for me there.
Yeah. It's like, I'm just going to go in here.
Y'all, let me tell you about this child. Okay.
Wait, let me finish what I was saying.
Oh, right.
So like, I'll just do things like today, like, okay, I've been telling him like, hey, when we get this robotic machine, we need to stop paying for so much postage because we're going to be switching shipping systems.
Yeah.
So we have to like slow down paying for postage when we get close to that, which mind you is not till September 24th. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I told him this like a week ago. In this
About a week ago.
In this last week, he's asked me at least 3 times if he needs to start slowing down. And I'm like, no, not until like 3 weeks from now. Like, not until the week before we get the Prada, which is not until September 24th. And so I realized like this doesn't mean like it's not processing in his head. So before I left work today, I printed a September calendar and I wrote how much postage he could buy each week, and then slowed it down.
Nice. That is wonderful.
Slowed it down the week before so he would buy less postage during that week. So like I'm gonna have him hang it up at his station so that he can use that, and so he won't have to keep asking me, should I slow down now? Should I slow down now? He can just look at the calendar and know when to slow down. But that's because I understand that it's hard to remember sometimes. So you just put things in place to get around your barriers, you know?
Someone give this woman an award. That was way too kind. That's great. I love that.
But honestly, like, maybe me and like 2 other people at work really give him the grace that he gets, and other people are just not as patient with him. But I will say he's very open to criticism. Like I've said before, like if he's like, there was one time where he was like getting snippy with a pharmacist, and I'm like, hey, calm down.
Oh, yeah,
like,
you
what are
told me
you
that.
being so snippy for? Like, he's not being snippy with you. And he didn't take offense to that. He was not upset for me calling him out. He just apologized to the pharmacist and went back to doing his job. Like, he would prefer you be direct and say what you mean and mean what you say, which wouldn't we all prefer that?
Yes.
Than
God,
to be like, oh, I'm so angry.
The instance I was trying to remember was my coworker saying that some of the names we saw that day sounded, quote, kind of black. End quote.
Passive aggressive.
Passive aggressive.
I fucking hate
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Nope.
Oh, and then I said his name again.
Girl, stop.
Give me these timestamps to bleep
Okay.
his name.
Oh my God, poor dude.
I know.
Just outing him out.
Airing him out.
Outing him out, airing him out. Yep.
And like white people Catholic.
Oh, that's the worst kind.
Yep.
You should leave that in there.
Just start where I said, and white people Catholic.
No, he was like, his family's Catholic and the white people Catholic. Oh, that's the worst kind.
Yeah. That's just where we cut to.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were about to say something about Boleyn, I think. Oh, you're going to tell everybody about Boleyn's bad habits?
I don't know what to talk about anymore.
Well, Boleyn's still waking her up at night. I'm sure you've heard that before. And I keep telling her she can give him stuff at night to make him sleep through the night. But I can see how you'd be weary of what I said before, which was CBD gummies. But now we found that they make dog melatonin gummies, which is a little bit more natural. So
Honestly, this may just be ignorant of me, but if it's on the shelf at Petco, I probably will trust it. You know what I mean? Like, I trust food at the grocery store, so I should trust whatever dog products are at the dog store that are safe.
I guarantee you they have CBD gummies for dogs at Petco.
Oh, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
like,
okay.
You told me to do more research. I'm not.
You're just going to go buy it off the shelf.
I trust that if it's in the store, it's meant to be sold and it's okay.
Yeah.
Like I know other people that have given their dogs CBD gummies, and
I would say maybe start with melatonin first, because melatonin might be cheaper than CBD.
Oh yeah, probably.
CBD can get pretty expensive depending on, because he's so big, he might need
More dosage.
But yeah, start with melatonin, see if that helps, and if not, then go to CBD.
I guess I'll just talk about it. He woke me up at like 3 a.m, and I let him outside, and then he woke me up again around 5, and I thought he just wanted to play. He had some of the Zoomies, and recently I had been talking to a coworker about how he wakes me up to 4 times a night sometimes, and she was like, "Oh, he's got you trained. Like, he's the boss of you, and the more you let that happen, the more he's going to continue it." And she didn't mean that in a bad way. She was just saying,
She was saying you need to put your foot down.
You need to, yeah. And so when he woke me up the second time, that's how I was like, oh, hell no. And her voice kept playing in my head, like, he's got you trained. And I was like, no, we're not about to do this. I want my sleep. So I kicked him out of the...
No one as savage as a person straight out of their sleep, not willing to take any shit.
Oh my God, I was so pissed. So like around 5 a.m, I kicked him out of the bedroom and I went back to sleep. I didn't wake up again for till like 7. So like 2 more hours. I did hear him cry a little bit, but it wasn't like a let me back in cry or something's wrong. It was more of like a I'm sad kind of
like,
cry.
Aw.
Yeah, but I was so sleepy I didn't get back up. Well, anyways, the minute I opened up my bedroom door, I smelled poop and I was like, this motherfucker. And it wasn't like a turd. It was like he forced himself to poop. It was like 2 little pieces and like a bunch of little pebbles. I'm like, you fucking forced this. And then a huge pile of piss. Just the biggest puddle of piss.
Could have been worse. He could have done it on the couch.
But okay, fine. But like, here's the thing. This boy can hold his bowels for 10 to 12 hours. So me like taking him out at 3 a.m. and him having to go again at 5 does not like, it doesn't equate.
No. He was acting out.
Yeah. And that pisses me off.
Yeah.
Like what? Like you're really upset about this, bro? Like really? Like I need my sleep. I don't know what else you want me to do.
Right.
And I've told Kelsey too, like he's barking at people when we're eating and he's barking at you. And I hate that. That is because if I can share with him my food, I will. Like I will split it down the middle and we'll eat half. But if I want to do that, and now it's gotten to the point where he won't even allow me to sit down all the way and enjoy my food before he starts barking at me. And I'm like, no, if you're going to bark at me, I'm not going to give you any food.
Yeah.
So I just have to deal with him barking until he finally gives up.
Right.
But Jesus Christ, like
I think what's gonna end up happening is you're gonna have to do no table food at all.
Yeah, I'm getting
like
there
never.
because you cannot bark at me, dude. Like that to me, that's so disrespectful. And he'll do that at nighttime too. Like he'll literally wake me up. I can feel him moving, and he starts to pant. And then if I don't get up from his panting, he gets in my face and barks at me. That is rude as fuck.
Dogs don't know rude though. He's just asking for what he wants.
I know, but like to me, it's like, dude, like
I know it's hard. It's hard not to make it personal. Like you're being a bitch right now.
being a little asshole, dude. Like stop that.
But
yeah, so the table food is we just have to sit there while he barks, or I let him out, and just we're gonna have to let him cry it out. Essentially, like let him keep bark. I can't do anything about it. Like we're not gonna give him our food, especially if it's food that we're not willing to share with him. And I get that. That's fair. You're not. Like, you as my guest don't have to share your food with Bolin just because he's there. And I don't either. Like, if I don't, he has his own separate food. He's not starving.
No.
Like, this dude is good. So.
He's well fed.
Very well fed.
Yeah. Start those melatonin gummies this week and then update us next week. Tell us how it's going.
Yeah. Give me any advice if you can, any training tips or what the fuck ever, because he's definitely a child of divorced parents and I'm over it. Like, stop.
Well, and like, wasn't he outdoors at your mom's house?
He was outdoors, yeah.
Maybe that's got something to do with it.
I mean, he was indoors with Maria, but he was isolated. Totally by himself, which was very, very sad. And yeah, and then he went from that to my mom's house to being an outdoor dog. Excuse me. And then to living with me for over 1.5 years to being indoor dog. So now he's very spoiled.
Yeah.
Like, he takes advantage.
Yeah. He's like, I like this life and I'm going to keep on living it.
And I'm going to run this shit. And now I'm like, wait, hold on.
Yeah, slow down.
Slow down there, bud. But yeah. I say that like a child of divorced parents, but my ex did nothing for him. So.
Yeah. He's still just your baby.
Yeah, he's my baby. He's always been my baby.
All right, guys. It is 1:45 a.m. It has been a long night for us. Oh, we didn't even say what we made to eat.
We made tinga. Tostadas.
Tostadas and red rice
Yep.
and beans.
Yep.
It was very good.
Very delicious. Probably like my favorite thing that we've made.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly.
It was
And
good.
put the chicken in the blender. Bruh.
Oh my gosh.
That was
okay.
amazing.
We have been struggling every time we cook here. We cook something with chicken breast and we have to shred it. And we're like, "Ugh." Like neither of us wants to shred it with 2 forks.
It just takes, it's such a hard, like,
Your hands just
Yeah.
hurt after. And then we're like, because we use the blender to make the thinga sauce. And so we're like, what if we just throw the chicken in there? Like, what's the worst that can happen? And we did it, and it almost
Like,
blended
in
too
2
much.
seconds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gone. Not gone, but like completely.
obliterated.
Yeah.
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 And like, I was like, stop it. Because like I could see
Like 2
it
seconds.
was going
literally.
to be pureed chicken if we let it go any further.
Yeah, it's like, it was tiny, itty bitty piece.
Yeah, but it still came out
It
good.
still came out good, yeah.
I would have preferred it be a little bit chunkier,
Yeah.
but we'll know for next time to just hit it.
Yeah, just 1 second, like just barely on there.
That's some sharp blades in there, let me
Wow.
tell you.
It's cut me before.
Ooh,
Mhm.
did you put your hand in there while it was going?
No, I was cleaning it.
Oh, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
I went to go pick. Actually, that was my fault. That was an intrusive thought. I was thinking about how sharp it was, and then I went to go grab it to clean it, and then I didn't place my hand correctly, and I cut myself.
Wow.
Anyway,
All right. Hope you enjoyed this impromptu topic.
validate your experiences,
Yes, and
be vulnerable,
yep,
and be open,
buy merch.
and buy merch. God,
Buy some
damn it.
goddamn merch,
My
okay?
God.
What kind of merch do you want? You tell us and we'll put it on there.
Yeah.
Very creative people.
Yes. Amen,
right.
sister.
All right, y'all. We'll see you next week.
Good night.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Good night. Bye.